Hi, morning coaches. Good to see all of you this morning. So I guess most of us are in already. Yep. So I would let me stop my slide so I can see everybody. Okay. Okay, maybe if you want, you can turn on your videos just to say hi to everyone this morning.
Morning.
Yep. We have Mark, our speaker for today, tuning in from all the way from the US. So he has very kindly agreed to do this at his time. Okay, so it's 10:05. Thanks for being on time. And so Mark, maybe for some of you, you might have heard of Mark Howell before. So he's actually the director of 3D Institute, which is an institute that looks into the professional development and the training of coaches all over the world. So Mark has actually been to Singapore 3 times, right, Mark? Yeah, he was supposed to come again this year, but because of the situation for COVID, we can't have him. But it's okay, we have technology to help us. So without further ado, Mark, over to you.
It is such a delight to be able to share with you. I mean, I'm staying up a little past my bedtime right now. At my age, you tend to go to bed a little earlier and get up before the roosters crow or the dogs start to bark here in the neighborhood. But it's such an honor to be able to be with you and to share a few thoughts, especially regarding this topic, because it has had a significant impact on how I now even deal with my own children, how I deal with other coaches and players, and it made sense of some things that didn't make sense in my own life. And so I'm just delighted to share with you some thoughts, and I hope that it may help you in your coaching, but maybe as well in your parenting and in your leading as well, or in your teaching if you're a teacher. Let me start by sharing my screen here. So what do you think is the key to achieving our goals, our success? I mean, many times some people suggest things like hard work, focus, persistence. And those are all helpful, but research shows that these are really all byproducts of something else, something much more powerful that we all once had. All of us were born with it. Some of us have lost some of it, and that we can all reclaim. It is something special that is really critical to long-term success. So why do some people succeed in sport, in education, in the arts, while some people who have equal talent don't? Over the decades, Dr. Carol Dweck has been studying this, and she's discovered that basically that people's mindsets play the crucial role. For this purpose, we are going to define mindset. And mindset is this: it's the mental attitude that will determine how you interpret and respond to situations. The mental attitude that will determine how you interpret and then respond to situations. And she has determined that basically there are two types of mindsets. One called a fixed mindset and one a growth mindset. This concept is probably the most discussed concept that I've now come across in sports in the last 10 years. You do a Google search and you will get, I did it right before this, 154 million results. Schools, companies, sports teams all over the world are implementing this into their culture. So what are we talking about with this? According to mindset theory, those with a fixed mindset believe that innate qualities like intelligence, talent, even personality and leadership, those things are, you're born with those. Those are established and really unchanging. They define who we are. I don't know your culture that well, but I know mine. And this is a common perspective in America. Listen to our language when we hear people say that, oh, they're a natural athlete. They're just a gifted artist. They're a born leader. Or even they're an honor student. Those are all labels. Those are all judgments. Those judge outcomes. And those are fixed mindset statements because they're saying these people have this, which means some have it and some don't. And they're basically born with. In the contrast, those of the growth mindset believe that all of these qualities are changeable and they can be developed. Support for this idea is ascribed in recent the study of the brain and what they call neuroplasticity, which basically says that it shows that our brains can grow even at mature ages. They continue to grow and reconfigure themselves in response to training. Even at my age, and I'm 63, and it's telling me I can continue to learn and grow. In this world, in a growth mindset world, there are no natural athletes or born geniuses, just people that work really hard to hone their skills. So why does this matter anyway? Why does it matter? Well, it turns out that folks, people with a fixed mindset pay a heavy price for this perspective. If you believe your talent is fixed, no matter how high performing you are, at some point you run into a limit. You run into a problem you can't solve. You run into a move you can't master. And at this stage, a fixed mindset has a few not so great alternatives to deal with it. You will basically see three alternatives, whether in yourself or in your players or students or children. And the alternatives are this: you lie, you get angry, or you quit. On the other hand, a growth mindset sees this barrier as a challenge and hence an opportunity to grow. Look, if you're dying to master surfing, I wish I had my picture. I spent 2 hours in Sri Lanka trying to get up on the board. And in 2 hours, I got up for a total of 10 seconds. But I got a picture of it. I got a picture. I just wanted to learn to get up. And I was pretty clumsy. But if you think that surfing is just too hard, you're going to just say, oh, that's for the fishes. And you're in the fixed mindset pool. Anything can be learned and mastered over time in a growth mindset. Listen, I want to be clear on this. Having a growth mindset doesn't guarantee success. There are genetic differences in endowments, socioeconomic and cultural advantages. There are other factors that help individuals become successful. But for someone with a fixed mindset, if you lack these advantages, you just see it as permanently limiting. In a growth mindset, you believe these can be overcome. The main difference you will see is in the focus. With a growth mindset, achievement is the end result. That's the goal. Progress. In a fixed mindset, the outcome becomes the goal. Our focus today, in America, it's crazy, but on a focus on everyone gets an award, everyone's a winner, everyone gets a trophy. It's a crazy thought process that focuses on the outcome and the award and puts our kids in a fixed mindset. And we are paying a big price for it here. You ask coaches today about, is it easier to coach today's athlete than 20 years ago? And almost all of them will say no. They don't take coaching well. They see us as judging them and not helping them. They see it as, I'm focused on the result and not the process. All of us start with a growth mindset. All of us. And I'll speak directly to that later. But we develop a fixed mindset as soon as we have the ability to determine whether we are good or bad at something. At a certain age, when we determine whether we are good or bad at something, we're moving toward a fixed mindset. And that usually happens. In fact, I know in my experience, I challenge you to think about in your experience, that usually happens when adults tell us those things, whether we're good or bad. It doesn't matter whether it's a parent, a coach, a teacher. As soon as we tell a kid, you're really good at this, or you're not, we put them in a fixed mindset. This research is clear. Even when we tell somebody that they're good at something, it harms their motivation and it harms their performance and the consequences that it leads to. Let me tell you my story with this. This was my still life masterpiece, my junior year of high school at 17 years of age, when I was carefully painting what I saw, just being very, very careful. And one of my favorite teachers of all time, one of the teachers that had a great impact on me was my high school art teacher, Mr. Craig. But one time, Mr. Craig really made me mad. I mean, that was 40 years ago. I'm fine now. I'm over it now. But back then, it really made me mad. Here's what he did. As I was carefully painting that, he took the brush out of my hand and he dipped it in some white and he put a stroke on it. And then he put it in this yellow and put a dash here and this turquoise and put a line there. And I'll never forget what I was thinking. What are you doing? It doesn't look like that. Well, all these years later, I think I know what he was doing. I think he was tired of the lack of risk that I was willing to take. And he was trying to help me see better. But why do I need to see better? I mean, I'm the best art student in the class. I'm gifted. I'm talented. That's what people told me. Well, I went on to major in art education. And I then went on to teach and coach. The sports I coached the most were wrestling. That was my favorite sport, Olympic style wrestling, and then track and field. But as I went on to teach, and that painting, the first one, this was in 1974. Well, in 1982, I was teaching and coaching, and I put the last brush strokes on this painting. I remember finishing it, and I set my brush down. And I've never picked it up again. And I've wondered why. I wondered why. And my family wondered why. And they'd ask, and I really had no answer until I read Carol Dweck's book 10 years ago. And I'm not kidding. It was like the skies parted. Oh, that's it. That's why. Because all my artwork, all of it, was done in a fixed mindset. See, people told me I was gifted, that they told me they liked my work. And, you know, it feels good when people pat you on the back like that. But now that means you need to do work that people like. That's now focused on the outcome, not the process. And all my work was outcome focused. Do what people like. And remember, I said that when you start to run into issues in a fixed mindset, you have three choices, basically what you'll find. You either lie, you get angry, or you quit. And I quit. Here's why I quit. Because I just got bored. Because when you do things only for the reason of the outcome that people like, that they're going to applaud you for, then you can't take the risks necessary to grow, because risks require failures, and failures aren't what people like, and people don't pat you on the back for that. And this is the outcome that I needed. So I didn't take the risk to grow. So I had to protect. Here's the other thing. You get insecure because you know you're not as good as people are telling you, but you like to be told that. So you need to do things and not take risks to be exposed. And I just came to the conclusion that I was bored. My subject matter was boring. My thought process was boring. My work was boring, at least to me. And when you're too bored for too long, you quit, because the focus was on the outcome and not the process. Dr. Dweck does an experiment with kids. It's really a fascinating one on fixed and growth mindset. And they do it by they've done this over and over again and get the same result. They take a group of like 12 or 13-year-olds. Now, this can be done at any age, but they're doing it at this middle school age. And they bring a bunch of middle schoolers in, and they divide them into two groups. And they give them puzzles to do. And after they do these puzzles, they turn to one group and they say this: "Wow, that's a really good score. You must be really smart at this." What kind of praise is that? That's fixed mindset praise, because it praises this ability that they have. They've made a judgment. The judgment is they're smart. Then they did to the other group, they said this: "Wow, that's a really good score." First sentence, exactly the same. The second sentence was a little different. "You must have worked really hard at this." That's growth mindset praise, because it praises effort, and you can praise strategies in the process. Growth mindset praise focuses on the process of learning and what it takes, effort and strategy. Fixed mindset praise focuses on the outcome, the result, and makes a judgment. Good result must mean you're smart. Well, then they ask them a question. We're going to do some more puzzles. So what kind of puzzles do you want to do? Do you want to do easy ones or hard ones? Easy ones or hard ones? What do you think the ability praise, the smart kids chose? You must be really smart at this. Do you want to do easy ones or hard ones? Which ones do you think they chose? %67% chose the easy ones. The smart kids chose the easy ones. How about the effort praised kids? 92% chose the hard ones. Why? Why did so many of the really smart kids choose the easy ones? Well, think about it. Student takes a test, or athletes win a game. We praise them for winning the game. We praise them for getting a good result on the test. We like being praised. In this case, we're praised for being smart. If we like that, then we want to look smart again. If we like being told we're winners, then the focus is on winning again. If the focus is now on how we look, then we better do easy ones because we're going to look better. If we do the hard ones, we may not look good. And if we don't look good, that must mean we're not smart. So they chose the easy ones. Well, here's what they did. They gave hard puzzles to both groups, because this is what they're going to look for. What would happen to effort and what would happen to motivation when they were challenged? What they saw very quickly on the ability praise group, the smart ones, is that many of the kids in the group started to lose interest quickly, started to lose a sense of effort, and started to just check out, just kind of lean back. The effort praise group stayed involved the whole time, stayed energized the whole time. But then after that, they gave them easy puzzles to do again and took their scores. What happens after you run into a challenge and you don't stay involved? What happens when you come back to the easy ones? The ability praise group did 10 points worse. The effort praise group, 15 points better, because they stayed engaged and stayed involved. Oh, they asked one more thing they did. One more thing. They asked them to self-report their scores. They asked them to self-report. How did you do? Self-report the scores. The effort praise kids lied about their scores, 10% of them. 10% of the effort praise kids lied about their scores. 40% of the ability praise kids lied about their scores. 40%. Why? Why? Because if doing well means I'm smart, then what does not doing well mean? It must mean I'm dumb. That's the only conclusion you can come to. And lying protected their image. Lying protected the result. And so, 3 choices: lie, get angry, or quit. Some of them quit, and when they had to report, 40% lied. As Dr. Carol Dweck lamented, we took ordinary children and turned them into liars just by telling them they're smart. When we tell young kids, when we tell anyone, focusing on the result and not the process, we put them in a fixed mindset because we're praising the outcome, and I like to be praised, so I'm focused on the outcome. If winning means I'm a winner, then what does losing mean? It's only one thing it can mean. I'm a loser. If I focused on the outcome. But if I focus on effort and process, then the outcome is not the purpose for doing it. What you'll find in competition is this. If you have athletes who are fixed mindset, then as they approach competition, they start to feel like it's a threat. Because the outcome can threaten my identity. If winning means I'm a winner, then losing means I'm a loser. And now I'm fearful because of the potential outcome. But if I'm focused on the effort, then instead of fear, it's excitement. Because I get a chance to see where I'm at, to prove where effort and my work is taking me. And by the way, if I haven't put the effort and work in, it will show that. But I have strategies now to come back with. How about you as a coach? How are you focused on your record and on the outcome and on the result? Do you get angry when a team loses? Do you quit on any of the players because they're just not gifted? We need to look at our own mindsets and fixed mindsets. Now, this happens when we're giving people positive feedback. How do we deal with it when there isn't success? I'm going to tell you a story about Elizabeth. Elizabeth is an 8-year-old gymnast, and Elizabeth was getting ready for her first competition. She worked hard, and she was excited the night before this first competition she'd ever been in. And she was in her room imagining where she was going to put the awards she was going to win the next day in her room. Well, she got to the competition and she was the first one out on the floor exercise. And she did well. She performed well. But as some other girls came along, some of them did better than she did. And in the floor exercise, she did not end up on the award stand. And that was her same experience for all 5 of her exercises. And she was devastated. Now, you're a coach, or you're her dad or mom. What do you say to her? She's devastated. What do you say to her? I'm going to give you 5 things that you can say. You got to pick one of them. I wish we could figure out how we might be able to just chart in and get a count on which one we would pick. But I'm going to give you 5, and you got to pick one. The first one is this, because, again, she's devastated, heartbroken. What do you say? You can tell her that you thought she was the best. You could tell her that she was robbed of a ribbon that was rightfully hers. Those judges. You could tell her, reassure her, and remind her that gymnastics is not as important as she's making it out to be. It's a sport. She shouldn't be as devastated as she is. You could say that she has the ability and that surely she will win next time. Or you could tell her that she didn't deserve to win. Yep, you got to pick one of those. Pick one of them. Okay, you got it in your mind. Let's break these down. Remember now, you're trying to help her in this devastation that she's feeling. What are you saying if you tell her that you thought she was the best? What is that telling her? First of all, it's just insincere. And it offers no help. She wasn't the best. You know it, and she knows it. You know who say these things? You know the people that will come to her and say that they thought she was the best? Grandma. Grandma will do that. That's what grandma's job is. That's what my grandma would have told me. But my grandma's opinion of this didn't matter at this point in time. But grandma cannot stand that I'm devastated and just wants to say something to help me feel better. And look, if it's my son or daughter, my player, I want him to feel better. But when I tell him that, it's not true and it's no help. What are you saying when you tell her that she was robbed of a ribbon that was rightfully hers? In this sport of judgment, those judges, they don't know what they were looking for. Listen, all that's telling her is that when something doesn't go her way, it's not her fault. It's somebody else's fault. I don't think I've ever had anyone pick that answer when I've done this, except I think all of us have picked that answer at one time or another. When we blame the outcome on an official, when we on this bad call, if that we just wouldn't have been that bad call, we'd have won. We do scapegoat officials sometimes. Reassure that gymnastics isn't that important. I'm now telling her that just because she doesn't succeed at something, it's not important. That's not a lesson that we want them to learn. Now, there may be another time in another situation where we have to put things in proper perspective, but this isn't the time for that. Tell her she has the ability and surely she will do well next time. Prior to reading this book, that's what I did. That's what I did. So I did with my children. I believed in them. They were gifted. My kids were gifted. And next time, well, if they have the ability and they didn't win this time, what's to say they're going to win next time? It offers no help. And when I say you have the ability, I don't give you a path to get better. You're already good enough. Tell her she didn't deserve to win. It's written a little harsh, but that's exactly what her growth mindset father told her. He said, look, Elizabeth, I know it feels terrible to work hard at something, do well, and not get the result you want. But remember, this is your first competition, and many of these other girls have been doing this for longer than you. And if you want to do this for fun, that's fine. But if you want to achieve, then you're going to have to work at these skills. and do some extra work and work on the things that you need to develop. And that's what she did. That's what she did. And she did very well in gymnastics. But when they don't do well and they're devastated by the outcome, you've got to come back to the process. You focus on the process and you give strategies. So, what does it look like? What does this look like, and how do you identify it in yourself and in your players? If you want to coach for a confident mindset, this is whether it's intelligence or talent. You can put in other things like personality, leadership, and say, in a fixed mindset, if those things you have the ability or you don't, you have the intelligence or you don't, what does it lead to? If I'm praising that, it leads to a desire to look smart. It leads to a desire to be on top, to win. By the way, if I want to win, just like the players or just like the children who chose the easy puzzles, if I want to win, just play easy games. Play bad opponents. You'll win, and you'll look like a winner. But you don't learn anything. And then when you come into a difficult competition, you've lost your motivation and you lose your confidence. If I focus on the outcome. But if I focus on the process and the strategy and effort, then in a growth mindset, it leads to a desire to learn. And therefore, what happens when I face challenges? I embrace them in a growth mindset. I avoid them. I look for the easy path in a fixed mindset. Obstacles, boy, I don't want the obstacles because they are in the way of my outcome. And obstacles, this is something I got to persist through. How about effort? We see effort as the path to mastery in a growth mindset. You've got to put in effort in a growth to learn and grow. Where effort in a fixed mindset, it's sometimes even worse than fruitless, because if I'm smart, that means I don't have to work at it. If I'm gifted or talented, I've already got the ability. I don't have to work at it. Do you have any players like that? That don't put in the effort because they've been told they've been gifted or talented, and now they come to you? And this is why coaches, this is the exact one, these next two, for why coaches think it's so difficult to coach players today. Because let's look at criticism. Coaching is actually a form of criticism. You critique, you evaluate, you think through, and then you offer advice. That's a form of criticism. In a fixed mindset, you're judging me. In a growth mindset, you're helping me learn. I can learn from that. And here's another one, the success of others. Do you as a coach or do other players feel threatened by another coach's or another team's success? Does their success feel like a threat to you? That is a fixed mindset response. For a growth mindset, you're intrigued by it. What are they doing? I wonder if I could learn something from them, because they're doing really well with this. They must have something they're doing that I can learn from. And that's what we see. That's what we see. And in the end, a greater sense that I have control of the outcomes, as opposed to a plateau that comes way too quickly. So here's some points. Recognize this. When you praise effort and strategy, not talent and intelligence. Listen to your voice, what you're telling. Praise their effort. Praise the strategy they're doing. Now, for all things, the more specific the feedback, the more powerful. When you tell somebody, that was a good shot, that's nice, but it's not that helpful when I can be more specific. I love the way that you kept your eye on the target and not just watching the ball, you were watching the target. That's what we're looking for. That's helpful. The more specific the feedback, the more powerful. Look, only praise when there's a reason to do it. Otherwise, it becomes meaningless. Specific, the effort and strategy, and only when it's necessary or there's reason, and then praise in private. Now, that doesn't mean just go off to the side, but recognize that praise, you're not praising someone so everyone else can hear it. This is not a reward. This is feedback. This is feedback. If somebody's doing something right, tell them specifically, and it's feedback. And then when you hear that fixed mindset voice in your head, we need to learn how to talk back. See, listen for your athletes. When you hear them say something like this, or when you in your own head are saying something like, I can't do that. Have you ever heard yourself say that? Have you ever heard your players say that? You need to stop listening to that voice and start talking back. Add one more word. Yet. Of course you can't do it yet. You haven't put the time and effort into it. But if you put the time and effort, and I help you, because that's what a coach does, you'll get there. You'll get there. Now, I want to go back to remind us that we all were there at one time. And if we can think about how this was done early on and apply it to coaching now, watch what will happen to your players. Look, if you got a kid, remember, or you wouldn't remember this, but you've seen it. Remember learning how to walk? See, at this age, I've got no ability to be self-conscious about mistakes. And kids make tons of mistakes. Falling down when they walk. No parent ever said to a kid when they fell down, "What are you doing? I've already showed you how to walk." You put one foot in front of the other. It's not hard. I can't believe it. You can't be my kid. No parent ever does that. What we do is we praise progress, we encourage through the mistakes, and then we redirect. Sometimes we add a new strategy. Sometimes we'll say, hang on to my fingers. That's a new strategy to help you learn how to do it. So we praise the effort. We will sometimes insert a new strategy. And in the end, we will celebrate learning and result. Think about that as a coach. This is growth. We focus on the process. We praise the effort. We sometimes insert a new strategy. That's what we do as a coach. If you're a basketball coach and you see that somebody's shooting the ball with no rotation, you're going to insert a strategy. Here's what I want you to do. See those two fingers? When you shoot the ball, I want to make sure those two go over. As one coach says, two over, or you got a do-over. I insert a new strategy. I don't care about the outcome right now. I don't care if the ball goes into the basket. I care about the process. I want to see that backward rotation, because that backward rotation will give you a better result long-term. So we're going to focus on the process, and I'm going to give you a new strategy, and then we're going to celebrate the result. That's what coaching looks like. The problem is most of our kids feel like they're being judged more than they're being helped. We test them in school, which is a judgment. We put them sometimes on teams too quickly, especially at a younger age. Now we're focused, we're putting them in competition so early, and competition in a game is about the outcome. It's really hard to make a competition about the process. You can do it, but it's not easy because parents want their kids to be winners. And if they're a younger age, you've got to help parents see this is not about result, it's about process. It's not about outcome, it's about learning. And thus, you need to determine and teach your own players about learning zone and performance zone. Learning zone and performance zone. They're two different places. If you say to players, you want to have a perfect practice, you have now made the practice a performance zone and not a learning zone. Practice is to learn. The goal of practice is to improve. That's why we have practice. If we're not improving, then what's the point of practice? The goal of the performance zone is to do the best we can. It's about the outcome. When we're in a game, that's the focus. We don't go into the game. I shouldn't say this. There's a few times where we will take a game. In track and field, there are a few meets that we said, this meet's not that important. We're gonna try some new things and we're gonna learn because 2 weeks later is the most important meet. So sometimes we turn a competition into a learning zone, but you better make sure you tell them that. Most of the time, we're taking the learning zone and making it a performance because they're always being judged. When they make a mistake, what do you do when they make mistakes? So the activity we design is to improve in the learning zone. In the performance zone, it's execution. We're in the game. We're not trying to improve there. We're trying to execute what we've learned. And thus, in the learning zone, we concentrate on things we haven't mastered yet. Boy, in the performance zone, it's the things we have mastered. Mistakes. Here's the key. You need to expect mistakes in practice, in the learning zone. We avoid them in the performance zone. Now, the right kind of mistakes, not mistakes of laziness, not mistakes of inattention, but all learning puts me past what I already know. I got to try something I haven't done yet. And I'm going to make mistakes. One of the first females to do in figure skating, do a quad spin 4 times around. One of the first persons to do that was asked, how were you able to perform that? Her response was, by falling down 20,000 times. In practice, it's the learning zone. And I fall down, I'm intrigued by what happened. Coach, what adjustments do we need to make? And I try it again and again and again. And then I master it. And then I execute in the performance. So the stakes, meaning what are the risks? You've got to have low risks in the learning zone. If I make a mistake, I should not feel the pressure of somebody yelling at me, being judged. I need to be helped. In a game, it may be a really it's time, soccer game is at the end, it's tied, and we're in penalty kicks. Those are high stakes. Those are high stakes. And I got to execute in high stakes. But in a learning zone, you don't want to do that. The source of mistakes or challenge, the source might be lapse of judgment or unprepared. But in both the learning zone and the performance zone, we still want to focus on learning and growth, because we always want to be, we want to keep judgment of winning and losing secondary to learning and growing. Because even as LeBron James says, it's always about a growth mindset. That's what his teammates need to talk about all the time. That you know you can get better, even at their age, even as good as they are. No matter where we are, we still feel like we can improve. But if you focus on the result, you're not focusing on improvement. You let the result take care of itself. Don't pray. Listen to your voice. Listen to the voice in your head. Listen to the words you share. Are they about outcome or ability or talent? Do you use words like you're just naturally gifted? Well, if I'm naturally gifted, why do I have to work at it then? You can say things like, you've got some ''abilities. Now these need to be developed, and that's what we're here for. Yes, it helps to be 6'9", 6'8", like LeBron, and 270 pounds. Now, I should do metrics. I should have done that, and can run and jump. But there are 1,000 LeBron James in America. Guys just like him, same size, same genetics. It's the fact that he works so hard that separates him from the rest. So listen to the voice you share. What are you telling your players? Help parents also to not put their kids in a fixed mindset like I did with my kids, especially my oldest daughter, telling her how gifted I thought she was at the piano, and told her the wrong things. Because when I speak like that, what I'm telling her is that I like to hear the outcome. What I should have said, I love it when I see you sitting down, challenging yourself, making some massive mistakes on the piano as you try to learn and grow. That's what I should have said. A little late, but she turns 33 next week. So it's a little late to change that from 4 years of age. But I've talked to all of my kids about this now, because I recognize in my own life and in what I did. I meant well, but I didn't help them. I want you as coaches, and you help your parents, to not just mean well, but help them become the best players that they can be. There's so much more about growth mindset that's out there. I encourage you, and we can send you some links to learn more, but it's not a hard concept. In fact, one soccer coach in South Africa who's worked very diligently with his club, and the club's had great success. When he goes and does workshops for other coaches, he takes 2 or 3 of his 12-year-old players, and he has their 12-year-old players explain growth mindset to the other coaches. Kids understand it, and you can teach it to them. That's a growth mindset. Help them. Don't harm their motivation and their confidence. Build it by affirming the things that all people can work at: effort and strategy. Eliza, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Mark. I think we have quite a few things to think about in terms of the language that we use with our athletes, and whether consciously or subconsciously, whether it puts them in the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. So thanks for sharing all those things with us. We still have maybe about 5 minutes for anyone that would like to ask Mark a question, you could type it in the chat box. You can just turn on your mic and ask him directly, because I'm quite sure some of the content would pique some questions in your mind. So please feel free, don't be shy.
Can I ask the question? Can I ask the question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Mark in Singapore. I've been coaching for nearly 50 years. I'd like to find out that, you see, the fixed mindset, it starts from home. Because, I mean, for self-discipline, the parents do that. But later on, if we go in as coaches, we can slowly change that to the growth mindset, like going up the ladder. It takes some time. And that is my personal experience.
You're absolutely right. And that's why we want to help parents to say too. I tell parents now, don't tell your kids they're gifted, they're talented, they're wonderful. That doesn't help. All your kids need to know is that they're loved. If your kids know they're loved, you create security from which I can take risks. That's all they need to know.
Thank you, Mark. Excellent session.
Hi, Mark. Hi, I'm Helen. I have a question. Yeah, thanks for sharing so much. I learned a lot. Okay, I have met this athlete, swimmer. He is, during junior years, 12 years old and under, he has got medals in competitions. But as he progressed into his teenager years, he find that he is among the top 10, but not near to the top 3. And he gave it up, totally hang up his trunk. So what he says is also resonating what his fellow friends are saying. If I cannot get medals, what's the point of swimming?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now that's a classic response, especially from an early developer. This is the problem, especially with boys.
Yes,
who are early developers. Usually the gifted and the talented among boys are just the ones who mature sooner. And so they're just stronger, quicker, more coordinated at an earlier age. But at puberty, man, the other boys catch up. And now all of a sudden the kid who won all the time and who won just because they're developed maybe hasn't put the time in these other kids. And now my identity, no, I did it so I would win. I don't win anymore. What's the point? This is something, especially with guys early developing, to help early on to get them engaged in the process of learning. And when we award them too quickly, now the focus is on the outcome, not the process. And when I don't get the outcome I want, what's the point? And we lose the joy of none of us started sport for that reason. None of us did. We started it because it was fun in itself. Sport and play is what's called autotelic, means self-rewarding. The reward of sport and play is playing, not trophies or outcome. It's the process. None of you went out and played all day when you were younger and mom said, get out of the house. You went out and played all day and you came back in and mom said, oh, I'm so proud of you for playing. Here's a ribbon for playing. You'd go, what? Because play rewarded itself. Sport should reward itself. It shouldn't have to have a trophy for me to do it. It should. I'm challenging myself. I'm not trying to beat everyone else. I'm trying to be a better me. And we lose that focus. And that young swimmer is a classic example.
Is there any way to bring him back?
Is there a way for me to pick up my paintbrush again? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. And I've thought about it. But I said, I've got to not care what anybody else thinks. I want to do it because I want to enjoy the process again, not do it so that I get people to pat me on the back. I think You got to recapture the joy of the process and stay away from the outcome.
Thank you, Mark. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I note that it's 11:04, so it's time. But if anybody else has any burning questions, we can just stay back after I round up for maybe another 10 to 15 minutes, and Mark could maybe share some more wisdom with you guys if anyone else has any burning questions. So let me share my